Thank you, Mindy, and thank you, Ceres and the UN Foundation for hosting this terrific event. I want to thank all of you, too, for being here, making a difference in our shared pursuit, really, of a sustainable energy future. So we're here to talk about climate risk, and as Mindy mentioned, I am coming to you from the front lines. I love that. In the United States, as you all know, California is absolutely at the cutting edge, the leading edge, both for the clean energy future that we all want, but also for beginning to experience the ravages of climate challenge. It's where the latest innovations in technology, the latest innovations in policy, and innovative customers hungry for the latest technology solutions are all converging. PG&E, my company, is headquartered in San Francisco, and I tell you, we work at the epicenter of this convergence. We build and operate the infrastructure that is enabling and accelerating the clean energy economy across our 70,000 square miles, both through Northern and Central California. So consider this your live report coming from the heart of the action, or the front lines. So what do I have to share with you today? I would say a lot of good news, really, really good news. Some really terrific and exciting things that are happening in California. But I also have to share that some of the news is not so good. Some of it is actually pretty scary. And there's been one unexpected development lately at this crucial moment that could derail the bold climate action that our state needs to achieve its energy goals. And I'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about the good news. First, when it comes to supporting the growth of clean energy technologies, as you all know, California has just been extraordinarily successful. We've gone further than many people thought possible, and we've done it at record time. Think back. It was just over a decade ago that California passed the Global Warming Solutions Act. It was the first legislation in the country to take a comprehensive approach to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The state required investor-owned utilities like PG&E to cut their emissions to 20%, to include 20% renewables in their portfolio by the year 2010. Before we got there, we increased that requirement to 33% by the year 2020. Well, at PG&E, we expect to hit that 2017 number. In our number for 2017, we expect to hit or potentially even surpass 33% renewable portfolio in our goal, in our overall portfolio. And we've done that. I'm so excited. We've done that 3 years early, which is great. It's a great start. But when you add all the rest of the work that we've been doing on hydro and nuclear, our cleaner energy portfolio today stands at 70% greenhouse gas free, and we're very proud of that too. Today, California has raised the bar even further, requiring 50% renewables for all the investor-owned utilities in California by the year 2030. But I got to tell you, at the current pace and the current growth that we see in renewables in California, the numbers show that the state's energy providers will all collectively hit 50% RPS by the end of the decade. That's 10 years earlier than planned. Oh my gosh, that's great news. As a matter of fact, there's a problem with that, and I'll tell you, it's sort of a good problem to have. There's so much renewable energy flowing through our system right now that in certain days in the spring and certain days in the summer, we have more power on the grid than we actually need, more than we need to meet the demands of the customer. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem, and we're trying to figure out, what do you do with all that excess power? How do we harness it? How do we make sure we could use it? And of course, we're pursuing storage. And we're also looking at how can we expand the grid to maybe encompass a larger footprint. And those are, again, great opportunities for us. In terms of GHG emissions, like I said, we're really excited about the progress that we've made. But there are other parts of our system and other elements within clean energy that are also been improving dramatically. Let's talk about private rooftop solar. As recently as the year 2000, there was almost none of it in our system, zero. Today, in our service territory alone, we have 340,000 customers that have solar rooftop on their homes or businesses. That's terrific, right? It accounts for about 20% of the total amount that we see nationally. The same thing goes with electric vehicles. We're a real leader in that, and we're excited, really excited, and we're hoping that Administrator Pruitt's actions don't have an impact on this. but 1 out of every 5 electric vehicles in the country are powered by our electric grid. Not only have we done all that at PG&E during the last decade or so, we've also done it while simultaneously delivering the highest levels of electric reliability in our company's history. So this whole myth about you can't put renewables on, it'll have a really negative impact on the ability for you to deliver safe and reliable power to your customers, is a myth. It's not true. Highest levels ever. We've also done that. Why do we do that? Because we've made investments, and we haven't just done this in a willy-nilly approach to integrating renewables. We've been thoughtful. We've upgraded our system. We've added sensors and regulators. We've hardened it, and we've made it better. While we've been also providing great reliability and integrating renewables, we've been supporting new industries, creating thousands of new jobs in what's been a booming economy in California. And we've done it while keeping costs to our customers reasonable and affordable. And I tell you that because it's critical. It's critical that we not lose sight of the importance of affordability for our customers. Because I like to say, and my team will tell you, I say it all the time, if it's not affordable, it's not sustainable. So, as amazing as all this progress has been, and as happy and proud of we are of it, we know we still have a long way to go. And some of the most important projects are frankly just getting started. Right now, California is working to get emissions down to 1990 levels by the year 2020. And you know what? We're feeling pretty good about that. We're really feeling like we have a plan to get there. By 2030, the state's goal is to reduce that further by an additional 40%. So now we're talking about cutting emissions nearly in half in the next 12 years for the world's 6th largest economy. That's tough, but we'll talk about that. The state, it's got any number of really aggressive and bold actions that it wants to take, and it's also saying, let's double down, let's double our energy efficiency effectiveness overall, again, by 2030. In order to accomplish all this, it's going to require a deeper penetration of renewables than what we're seeing today, which in turn is going to require even more investment to our grid to make sure we continue to integrate it in a thoughtful and responsible manner. I have to tell you, as I think about all this, it's going to really require that we look at our business in a different way. It's going to require a bit of a revolution in the transportation space, and that's why Administrator Pruitt's announcement yesterday is a big deal for us. We need a massive shift to electrification in transportation. A little bit about transportation in the state of California. We don't have coal, so the largest emitter of carbon in our state's economy is coming from the transportation space. As a matter of fact, transportation accounts for about 40% of the GHG in California. And if you add the refining process for the fuel, it's closer to 50%. Simply stated, California cannot achieve its climate goals without a huge increase in electric vehicles. It's a big deal. So just last week, we heard from Governor Brown when he signed an executive order calling for 5 million zero-emission vehicles on California roads by the year 2030. Today, we have about 350,000, so we have a ways to go. But there's 27 million vehicles in California. We're a big state. We're a big economy. And people are buying and selling cars all the time. That number is very achievable. It's very achievable. One of the keys, in fact, to that goal is making sure we have the electric infrastructure in place to power those vehicles in a way that's convenient and affordable to customers. Now, is all of this possible? I'm an optimist. I absolutely believe it is. But I'm also a realist, and I don't think it's going to be easy. I know that it's going to be challenging. But what I can tell you is that PG&E, we're all in. We're all in helping the state achieve its goals. We're all in helping save our planet. We see the electric grid as a platform that offers the scale to support this transformation. A climate solutions platform that allows for integrating and optimizing the various technologies that are going to be needed to meet this challenge. And for companies like us, that represents a tremendous investment opportunity. Today, to give you a sense, we're investing about $6 billion in our infrastructure annually. That's a lot, right? Let me give you a sense of what that means in the utility world. It's equivalent to us acquiring a small to kind of, on the low end, medium-sized gas or electric utility every single year without paying a hefty premium. These investments are building the infrastructure that will make the revolution, the transformation, a reality. So for example, a key part of the governor's clean transportation strategy we talked about was electric vehicles. Well, you need charging stations. You need charging stations to be as common as gas pumps. So what are we doing about it? Today, over the next 3 years, we are going to be building out 7,500 public charging stations as a start, because we have made an internal goal for ourselves of having 2 million electric vehicles on the road by the year 2030, and our goal is to make sure we're not an obstacle to making that happen. We've got to make sure that we continue to invest, that we continue to provide that infrastructure investment opportunity, not just to help our drivers, it's good for our business as well. It helps increase our load, because we believe that while we're starting off with 7,500 electric chargers in the next couple of years, we believe that number needs to be hundreds of thousands. They're needed because we need to make sure that drivers, we can relieve them of this range anxiety that they have, this fear of running out of juice. And it takes a long time to charge an electric vehicle. So we're not talking about spending 6 hours standing by the charger while you do groceries. It's a top-off strategy. It's a top-off strategy, right? You're doing groceries, top off your electric vehicle. You're running into CVS or Walgreens, top off your electric vehicle. You're working, top off your electric vehicle. We think most of the electric vehicle charging will occur at home, and that's fine. But having an infrastructure out there to help customers get comfortable with driving all electric is really important. We also are on our way to connecting, over the next several years, 580 megawatts of storage. Storage is huge. It's the linchpin. It's an incredible enabler. And we agree with presentations made earlier today about the price point coming down. And we're excited about that because it's good for our infrastructure and good for our customers. As we continue to modernize our grid with the control systems, sensors, and analytics, this is needed to weave all of these diverse technologies together seamlessly, automatically, so that we can economically dispatch, so that we can safely and reliably dispatch all these various technologies on the grid, some of which we own and some of which we won't own. We are deeply committed to the California vision of a sustainable energy future. It's in our corporate vision. But we now have 12 years to get where California wants to go. About as much time, by the way, that's passed since that historic and crucial legislation occurred back in 2006. 12 years. 12 years. And utility time, okay? 12 years is like around the corner. We're planning for projects 20, 30, sometimes even longer out. 12 years is a blink of an eyelash. Now, how many of you are on social media? Everyone, right? Well, then you know that there's this sort of very popular theme in social media where the catchphrase is, life comes at you fast. 12 years is going to come at us fast. But I'll tell you the other thing that's going to come at us fast, and that's climate change. As a matter of fact, we think climate change is here. In 2017 alone, the frequency and the severity of extreme conditions that we saw absolutely boggled the imagination. Let me start with the parade of horribles. It starts with the 5-year drought that killed over 100 million trees in our forests. It ended with the wettest water year in the state's recorded history, the coldest winter in recent memory, followed by the warmest summer with a heat wave that spiked the temperature in San Francisco in the summer, to 106 degrees 2 days straight. Another off-the-charts record. And of course, that was all a prelude, as we now know. It didn't stop there. What came next was a climate catastrophe that those prior shocks had set the stage for. And of course, I'm talking about the devastating wildfires. It started in the north and then happened in the south. If you followed the news, you know about the devastation. More than 500,000 acres burned, nearly 10,000 homes destroyed, 330,000 people had to be evacuated, and countless lives lost. It was really tragic on so many different levels. I tell you, I've been in the energy business for a long time, over 30 years. I started my career in Florida, and I have seen firsthand the devastation of hurricanes. I then came to California, and I've seen firsthand the devastation of earthquakes. But in all my years, I have never seen anything like these fires. Their speed, their intensity, their size. I mean, I get goosebumps just even talking about it. Yet, these sorts of extremes are all becoming just way too common. Think about all the various new terms we're hearing about whenever we tune into the meteorological news. We're hearing about fire tornadoes, fire hurricanes, superstorms, derechos, and my favorite, bomb cyclones. What is that, right? The reason I truly believe that they're so unfamiliar, these terms, is because they describe phenomena that was supposed to be kind of rare and extraordinary and unusual, maybe even once in a lifetime. But today, they're fast becoming the new normal. That's what we're experiencing in California, a new normal for extreme wildfire risk. So like I said, climate change comes at you fast. That means that the nature of climate risk is also changing. Until now, climate risk in many places was centered about how well we were going to be prepared with a post-fossil fuel world and how to deal with that. Living the actual impacts of climate change is not something that people have really been thinking too much about. I mean, in many ways, it's been an abstraction, somewhat theoretical. Yeah, the science was there, but it was going to happen later. Somebody else was going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to deal with it. The future has absolutely arrived. I'm certain of it. And not just in California. I mean, look at the Caribbean. Look at Texas. Look at other parts of the world. I was talking to the senator from Alaska. There's no snow. This is real. So climate change is no longer coming. It's here. Now, you may be thinking that's the bad news. That's what Geisha was going to talk about in terms of the bad news. And it is. It is absolutely the bad news. But there's even more. The 2017 California wildfires expose a hidden and terrible irony, and that is the extreme weather events driven by climate change, the very kind of risk that brought us to this room today, also endanger the ability of California's energy companies to continue their clean energy work. And let me explain. The reason is this incredibly obscure California legal doctrine called inverse condemnation, which holds that if equipment owned by a company like ours is found to be the substantial cause of a wildfire or other significant type of event, we can be held strictly liable for all the costs, even if we followed all the legal and all the safety standards. In essence, it's a no-fault, unlimited, strict liability. In other words, investor-owned utilities like PG&E, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric can be left holding the bill for an act of God, facing unlimited liability for legal costs and for property damage. Which, of course, you can imagine in the case of a wildfire, if a power line sparked that fire, even though it was in the midst of hurricane speed winds, we could be held responsible for billions of dollars. Our market cap has dropped 40%. It's unbelievable. We had to suspend our dividend, and the cause of the fires aren't known yet. This is just because of this law and the incredible uncertainty associated with the liability. The policy, this inverse condemnation policy, you can tell I hate it, right? This policy is deeply flawed. It isn't affordable, and it's certainly not sustainable. And ultimately, it carries grave implications for the industry's financial health and our ability to attract investment that the state needs now more than ever to fulfill our climate goals. And even more is at stake. The combination of wildfires and bad policy reveal that climate change doesn't just pose a threat to life and property, it also has the potential to disrupt climate action. We need to think broadly about this as a society. We're going to have to look at climate change and its consequences differently. For example, new risk maps in California show that nearly half the state is highly vulnerable to future wildfires. What are the implications of that? What are the implications to our customers and our communities in terms of their ability to get insurance? We're hearing that even now, customers are having difficulty renewing their coverage. What will it mean in terms of planning and building codes? What are we going to do about that wild and urban interface? Are we going to continue allowing significant build-outs in these high fire risk areas and the utilities' obligation to serve it? What are the implications for forest management, which I have to tell you has long been neglected? What are we going to do on our own utility practices, our own standards? What are the right fire suppression strategies? We've got to think about this in a very different way, because meeting these challenges are going to require a holistic societal approach, a collaborative approach, one designed not just for energy companies, but for all the key industries and stakeholders whose hopes, frankly, the whole future depends, on whom our hopes for the future depend. And the fact is, we can solve this. We can absolutely solve this. We have solved similar issues before. We've dealt with floods, we've dealt with earthquakes. We absolutely need to deal with wildfires in a different way. And we're discovering that wildfires is just the latest in another climate risk. There'll probably be others. I also do not believe that California is the only place where climate change could potentially hinder climate action. But in the United States, California is where the future of this energy industry is going to be determined. What's happening with the climate is yet more evidence that there's no time to lose and that we cannot afford to fail. We have to be a great example for others. We cannot afford to fail. From the very beginning, I would tell you that the California Clean Energy and Climate Project has been a learning process. We set big goals without really knowing exactly how we're going to get there, but we figured it out. We had conviction and we had resolve to find a way forward. What we're learning today is that investing in a decarbonized future must also include investing in the solutions that we need to manage climate risk. And we've already started, and it starts with resiliency. We're funding projects around the state to help communities develop strategies for climate resilience through public and private partnerships, and to share that information broadly for others to emulate and others to follow. We're encouraging other companies to do the same through the California Resilience Challenge, a corporate funding effort designed to attract resources across the entire business community, and we put the first $1 million ourselves in. That money, that seed money, which we hope grows to about $20 million, will support community-level climate resilience projects focused on water, energy, telecommunications, as well as the natural ecosystems and the wildland urban boundaries. This broader approach is also a great opportunity for California policymakers who have long been tremendous climate leaders to now pick up the mantle and be tremendous climate resilience leaders. Is there a way to focus attention on the problem and recruit willing partners with the expertise to do things in a big way, just as the state has done so successfully in enlisting the energy companies to help with greenhouse gas emissions? We believe so. I'm confident that we can find a solution. We're Californians. We're used to doing big things. We're used to tackling big challenges, and I'm certainly ready for that challenge myself. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of smart people with a lot of different perspectives working together to come up with answers. And it's also going to take continued smart investments to implement them. And that's why what you do matters so very much. So people forget that the climate comes at you fast sort of catchphrase was originally coined by an insurance company as sort of a humorous way of illustrating how quickly things can go wrong in life. But what we've accomplished in California this last decade also shows how quickly things can go really right. The challenge now, for the sake of our shared future, is to make sure we stay on that track and we make the necessary policy adjustments and follow that with the right investments so that we can continue the bold climate action that our state, country, and world needs. I know we're going to get there. I believe we're going to get there. And I look forward coming back and sharing the good news. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you today.